Right, welcome back to the formation flying. This time it's part 5. Here we're going to stitch together part 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we're going to look at an absolute practical way in which you can go and actually do the job. All right. If I look at the formation briefing, there's a couple of things. Remember, you start off with the aim also to say, what is it that you want to do? Is to fly past the opening of the game at the Toyota Stadium at exactly 15:49. Very precise. Where? What is the time overhead? The type of formation, we're going to do a 4-ship box formation with Charlie in the lead, Conrad number 2, Neville number 3, and number 4 in the box will be Wally. Those are names. You can give them actually your own names, though, about that. But that's just the way that it is. Timeline. The pre-flight will be at 1500. Strap in and start up at 1530. Take off at 1545. In the hold at 1550. And from there on, obviously, the hold will take, and the time over target is 5:59. Okay, so just a short one here. The timing is from here we are now, there we pre-flight, there we start, there we taxi, there we take off, there we in the hold. And in the hold, once you establish in the hold, give yourself a little bit of a leeway so that you can compensate for anything that may go wrong, whether that's with an aircraft or timing on the ground or whatever the case might be. Frequencies, formation frequency. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Lead will taxi on 1313 and then go to Broom Tower. Number 4 will also monitor the VFR. Members are not expected to change frequency at all calls. Warning attention is conveyed on 1345. In this case, that was started. That number 4 will also just keep a listen out. And but the number 4 has got, in other words, the monitor on. But he's on the internal frequency, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whatever the case is, whatever the frequency is that you pick. Now we come, and I show them formation, and we said in lead, that's going to be Charlie. Number 2, we said it's going to be Conrad. We said number 3 is going to be Neville. We said number 4 is going to be Wally. All right. And this is how you speak to the guys. And now you start explaining the line ups, the join ups, and the line ups, the steady out. Who makes sure that this distance is correct in between the stuff? Let me just get there. And then there, somebody must make sure that that line is correct, and then that line will come after that. Right, this is what the formation will look like. What I've got here, just a quick back to the pattern. We've done the pattern in the 4th preparation. And this is just a reminder. And now on the day of the briefing, you show this to everybody. All right? Show it. Draw it. Do something. But you can't just sort of, we won't make it up as we go. There's no such thing in a formation. There's the IP, we're going to take off, we're going to fly, I'm going to take in, I'm going to enter it from this direction, and then I'm going into the hold, and this is where I want you to set the powers must be set right. Here we'll set in, power will slightly be reduced for the hold to set. We're going to work on the 1-minute concept, and everything is going to be rate 1, and then from there on, this is what? What is the height here, and what are we going to do from that point on? Okay, now for part 2, the sequence of events. After briefing, pre-flight, then stand so that the formation members can see each other. I've seen that such a lot. People rush to the aircraft, the one does a quick walk around, the other one does a more thorough. The guys hop into the aircraft, start, and there's a guy that's not even inside the aircraft yet, but the rest has started. You can't do that. The right way is once you've done, when done and ready, we're done and ready, we stand in front of the aircraft and we show run up. Now everybody gets in, and in this case, I didn't ask for a check-in beforehand, but we said after start, listen out, internal friction, lead will say, cheetah formation, check-in. Now we're waiting. Now the answer in sequence, 2, 3, and 4. If one member is late and calls out of sequence, all members counted for, lead will repeat the call. That I've said before as well. Oh, wrong place. In other words, the moment that we start doing the call in, cheetah formated check in, and there's a random, maybe number 2 wasn't on air and he struggled to go on air and eventually gets on air. But number 3 and 4 already called in, number 2 in at last, then lead will just say, copy that, cheetah formation, check in, number 2, number 3, number 4, fine. And then lead will call the taxis, members will just follow in the numerical order. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and so on and so forth. The takeoff run position, just to come back to that one again, the wind, in this case I depicted the wind from here. In other words, the slipstream goes that way and the slipstream goes that way in the wind conditions. So let me just erase that and then say, okay, lead must line up at a point where there is enough space for the rest of the guys. Number 2 sits in that sort of vic, and number 3 lines up, and number 4 is there already. Lead will say, lead lining up left. Then the rest don't have to say, I'm right, I'm left, I'm right. No. Lead left. Lead taxis. Once he's got the takeoff, he's on the runway, he parks on the left, the rest of the guys fill in. And number 4 will have to call ready. Okay, third part here. Everyone call ready, lead again checks in the formation, line up on the runway is done, streamer takeoff with a 2-second gap between it. And number 4 calls airborne. Just a reminder here. When you take off, and I'll just use these little aircraft, when you take off this slipstream from here, if it's on this aircraft, just ease out and get out of the slipstream. Now you'll see sometimes at an air show, if there's a streamer takeoff, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Harvards, the first Harvard get airborne, the next guy get airborne, and it's like a little bit waffly. There's nothing wrong. He's just been in the slip of number 1, and you ease out of the slip. So you'll see a lot of guys, once they're airborne, they just ease out of slip. And it looks like it's unnatural. It's not unnatural. The pilot is really just trying to get out of the slipstream because it makes control quite a bit less than you actually would expect. Lead calls the turns and set power. Says, okay, left turn, go. Formation forms up in sequence. Number 4 in the box. Lead will route to the hold, men will settle in their different areas. All right. So here we have taken off. Everybody is in this gaggle of a streamer takeoff. Number 1 now turns out and he settles on a heading, and maybe he's climbed to a certain height at a reduced power, and then this is the steps that we're going to follow. So let's just go through the step. Number 2 needs to get into position, so wherever number 2 is, he moves in, and only once he's in he can move forward. All right? This is what we've spoken. Now number 2 is in place. Number 3 goes forward to a place, then moves right, till he's in the place where he needs to go, and now he moves forward. There it is. Now you've got the first Vic part properly formed up. Number 4 comes from wherever he is. He goes to a position that is line astern of number 1. He moves forward and he moves into the box. Step by step. It's not a race to get in position Who's going to win this race? Because right after takeoff, if lead turns and number 2 is behind, he's going to cut the corner to get easier into space. If he's going to the right, he's going to cut the corner. Because the radius of turn is a magic tool to use if you just haven't got that extra power. Cut the corner and go to your position. He's there, cut the corner, get in position. The second guy will cut the corner, move out, get into the third guy will also cut the corner and ease in. And there we go. Depending on the situation. But what I'm showing here is that there's a sequence. Number 1, point first. He's got his lateral and then fore aft movement. So there's not zip directly into it. Yeah, but Charlie, we've been doing formation for, 10 years and I know what I do. Well, why are you watching this video? All right? Never mind. Okay, formation pilot briefing. Remember, we now talked about things that we're going to do, and the planning phase is done. Everything is ready. We know now what it's going to do. Describe the guys how can. Okay, now the pilot briefing, part 4. In this case, we say, all right, in the case leaders plan all the turns to the left, but the turn to the right may be used for correction. All right, we would have sent most turn to the right, but slightly to the right, and. The hold, let's say it's a 4-minute hold. You can reach it 2 minutes. The hold finishes when the heading is set done and it's run in for the IP point. So here I'm just to say that this area is now the hold. So once we're done with the hold, the turns that we're going to do in the VIC, turn to the left, there's a turn to the left, all the turns were planned to the left, and we're going to do that at rate 1. But if it needs to be more than rate 1, we can go anything up to 30 degrees. Now, be very careful if you haven't trained your guys in a 30-degree banking turn in these 2 guys in the sort of VIC positions. And remember, number 4 is in the line of stern position. Practice makes perfect. Ease it in, ease it out. Anticipate. There's momentum. You cannot lead. You cannot get behind what you're about to do. And there's no, oh, poof, I'm past. And now you've just ruined the whole formation. If you've made a mistake, you know you've made a mistake, correct it in a very, very calm and easy manner, and then make another adjustment to regain the correct position. Okay. Now for the run in and over, the run in into target, initiate, leads maintain the power setting, lead calls the descent, lead levels off correct, lead makes very small adjustments. At 30 seconds out, lead calls smoke on go. Okay, once clear of the target, 10 seconds, lead calls smoke off go, lead calls the champion. Remember I said here, your best thing to remember is that, man, if you 30 seconds before and then wait for 30 seconds afterwards, if it's possible, it's not always possible to fly over, maybe there's stuff in the way and you might have to climb slightly and. But you just call it cheetah formation, left turn, go, 2, 3, and now you ease it in. Cheetah formation, starting at an easy climb, go. Lift the nose. Lead, don't add power for a climb or a descent unless you declare it. Just remember the rest of the guys haven't got that extra. You must have power to stay in position, let alone if you sit putting full power and climbing power. There's no way. He's got excess power to maintain his position in that. So be very careful. All climbs and descents will be, let's call it a cruise, but a very, very gentle climb and a very, very decent. It's not formation aerobatics. We'll do that at another time. All right. Now you've got your fly past part. Obviously, that starts from the IP right through. And here I said 10 seconds, but I would suggest even a little bit more. Okay. Now, the last part coming up here will be the initial brake and landing. Lead lines up the formation in the active runway for the brake as determined. Now, the easiest thing is to get everybody in a line astern, and then number 3, brake. And the humans just need no. Now, I'll just talk about this left, right, but I'll revise that again. When it's a formation in a certain pattern, I wouldn't do a streamer fly over and brake from there. That has got very little spectacular value, or spectacle value. I will fly over in the formation and then start peeling them off as we've discussed before. Lead calls the brake from inside and outside, and then from rear to front. Space for landing, once that it is, you call space for landing, and then everybody gets out of the way, space for landing, and now you're busy inside the cockpit and you don't need to fly close formation. Yes, there are cases where advanced teams will go for formation landing. You need the right kind of runway and. But as a rule, space out, give each other time, and unless you've got a big runway. In our case here, we're going to space for landing. This one does his pre-landing, this one does his pre-landing, he goes, and he spaces as per normal on the other aircraft. Individuals prepare for landing, lead calls final, and he says which, and look here, which he says left or right, depending on the wind. So, what does lead want to come in? Here we're on final, there's a slight wind from the right. Where do we want? Lead wants to land on left. And he stays left of the center line. Listen to this now. If you're going to be left of center line, that's where you stay. If you're going to land right of center line, that's where you stay. You don't sneak all over the place, because there's another guy and another guy landing. So you've got to be very careful. Your takeoff is on your side of the runway, period. Okay, be careful, be careful, be careful. That one can hurt each member calls finals and 3 greens. Okay, brief on the visual formation shutdown. In the Harvard, it was fine. We could come in with a 16 ship, all park, and then you would all spool up, make the pitch course, and shut down the aircraft. That was a ritual, and the sound that it made was just awesome. All right? A formation shutdown, if you've got this, you want to do it fine. You all come, you park, and you call the shutdown. How do you call a set? Formation set 1000. Stand by with mixture cut, go 2, 3, check, and close. Do this, do this, do this, do this. And then you're off the air. Just call it. You've got the rhythm of the timing and all that stuff. It is spectacular. And then the last one is obviously to get together for the post-flight briefing. There must be a post-flight briefing. Okay, just a little bit about that break again. Remember, this is how we've run in, and the first 2 will peel off. So, cheetah formation, stand by for the break. 2 and 3, break. And they're going, and they're out. And then 1 and 4, break. We've used the odds to the left and the evens to the right. Do stuff in a way that you will, let's say, apply it 99% of the time. When you become a hotshot formation and everybody understands each other, and then there can be slight changes. But in the beginning, don't fool around with this. Don't put the idiot as the lead. All right. The pilot briefing, obviously, problems, power check problems. If there's an engine cut on the flight, you know what are we going to do? Radio failure, no go. radio failure, airborne, and signals, something wrong with the aircraft, speak up. This is a, remember we're still with the pilot briefing, eh? So part 7 is the emergencies. Any place that anything could go wrong, and you go through the phases, if anything goes wrong with the start off, with the radios, with the power check, after takeoff, and you've got to go through what are you going to do. Because if you've got no radio control, you're not going to fly. Have we got time to wait? Well, we're now scaling down to a 3-ship. That could be possible. Wouldn't be the first time. This happens a lot of times. Okay? So, but you've got to brief. What is the contingency plan once you've got an anomaly? All right. Then there's still a briefing on, that's part 18, airmanship. Airmanship. All right, guys, today we're going to stick to the plan. We're going to fly within our own capabilities. Yeah. No idle chatter. Assist the lead off. If the lead slips, remember we briefed in the beginning that number 4 is going to keep a, so number 4 will be the one if there's radio something. Anybody else, if they see a problem, will inform lead. But remember, it's not a chat frequency. The frequency must be clear that at any moment lead can call, because if there's something that's threatening this, and here you will typically talk about the threat and error analysis and stuff. Errors, how are we going to capture it? What are we going to do? And. But remember the old golden rules. Just go through the SOP, follow the briefing, do the plan. Do not make it up as you go. Consider the rest of the aircraft. Do procedures properly before joining. Always train properly beforehand. That is so important. So once you've got the threats and the error. Now remember, trim, if you set right, if you didn't trim, it's an error. It's going to become very uncomfortable. And it's going to distract your attention from looking at the leader. We cannot afford at any moment in this whole thing that you are not 100% focused on the leader. And that's why while you're looking at the leader, you can be able to touch things in the cockpit without looking anywhere else. Only at the leader. Do you know the cockpit? Have you got, is everything in touch? Is it there? Do you know? I can do pre-landing procedures without looking inside. Because if we do a formation, I slow down with lead. He's looking at the speed. When I say his flaps going down, my flaps go down. If I see his undercarriage go down, my undercarriage go down. Okay? And I know, and I push this full forward, and you with me? All right. So, the next one, all right, that is then the finish of part 5. Part 5 is just a little bit more practical way of looking in it. You have to watch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get the whole picture. Is there more to learn? Of course. We can never stop. Remember, I'm putting down here stuff to start off with because we've got nothing, there's nothing formal. How do we teach formation in this country? I don't know. But here is a point. So, number 1, do not go and do something that you're not trained for. Number 2, once you're trained, you have to plan. Number 3, you have to apply the procedures, the known and the verified procedures and way of doing things. Number 4, always consider threats and errors. And number 5, enjoy. Until next time.